This video is brought to you by StatHead from the creators of Pro Football Reference. I absolutely love this product and I use it religiously to do research for a ton of my videos, and have for quite some time. StatHead is the best database out there and gives you just about anything you could ever have hoped to research. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to use. The Jacksonville Jaguars absolutely suck this year and are 0-4, which is funny seeing as owner Shad Khan called this the greatest Jaguars team ever assembled. So much for that. I want to know whether this is the longest losing streak in Jaguars history to start the season off. So I just go to the team streak finder that StatHead has, put in the information that I need, and boom! Instantly, I get results on the worst starts in Jags history and just how much we've sucked in the past. You can see they started 0-8 in 2013. You can see the games they did that in. And yes, I remember each one of these games vividly. Not fun times. None of this footage was sped up. It was that quick, and it was that easy. It's only $9 a month for football, or $16 a month for every sport. But if you use my code JG9 at checkout for an annual subscription, not only does it help the channel out a ton, but you get a 20% discount. Link in the description below. So go to stathead.com and sign up today. December 24th, 2005. It's week 16 of the NFL season. And as we roast chestnuts on an open fire, and as Jack Frost dips at our nose this Christmas Eve Saturday, we've got an absolutely critical battle in the NFC South between the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of all the games that take place during Week 16, you could make the legitimate argument that this was the biggest of the bunch, as this game had massive playoff implications. This was the gist of the NFC standings with 2 games to go in the season. As you can tell, it's extremely, extremely messy. For Tampa Bay, a win wouldn't clinch a playoff spot, but it would put them in a great position. In fact, a win, coupled with the Carolina Panthers loss, seeing as they sit at 10-4 while the Bucs sit at 9-5, puts them in a tie for first place in the NFC South, and gives them a chance to take the division and host a playoff game. Meanwhile, for the Atlanta Falcons, you can see the absolute mess that they're in when it comes to the wild card. The Buccaneers have the number 5 seed and are Atlanta's current opponent, and 4 teams are fighting for the number 6 seed at 8-6, including Washington, Minnesota, Dallas, and of course, Atlanta. We won't know what the Vikings do until Christmas Day, seeing as they play the Baltimore Ravens in a primetime game. But regarding the 2 NFC East teams in Washington and Dallas, they both play at 1 o'clock, as in the same time that Atlanta is playing this game. Atlanta doesn't own any tiebreakers to speak of, so if they lose this game, they're eliminated from playoff contention. Obviously, if Atlanta loses, then they'd be unable to catch Tampa, seeing as Tampa would have 10 wins while Atlanta would have 8. And if teams like Washington and Dallas win, then they'd be at 9 wins. And there would be no way for the Falcons to catch them due to tiebreakers, because they did not have a good record in the NFC. In other words, no questions asked. The Atlanta Falcons must win this game. Nothing else besides a win is good enough. Even a tie is not good enough if you want to have any chance at controlling your own destiny. You need to win. And speaking of things that you need to do, if you like learning more about the history of the NFL and some weird and wacky stories like the one in today's video, then you need to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on this channel about NFL history. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. And so far, things are looking really good for Atlanta during this Christmas holiday. 4 minutes left in the contest, and the Falcons lead at 24-17. If they can just get a defensive stop and get the ball back, then they're going to win, and they'll put themselves in a position with a win on the final day of the season to make the playoffs. However, that does not happen, as a 65-yard drive by quarterback Chris Sims that culminates in a 6-yard touchdown run by Cadillac Williams on 4th down ties the game at 24. Christmas Eve dinner is going to have to wait just a little bit longer, because we've got overtime. And by this point, keep in mind, because the game ran long, we knew the outcome of what happened across the NFC. You could just look up at the scoreboard at Raymond James Stadium and see it for yourself. Washington won their game against New York by a final score of 35-20. And Dallas, in highly controversial fashion, won their game against Carolina by a final score of 24-20. Both Dallas and Washington were now at 9-6. And remember that the Minnesota Vikings, who played on Sunday, were 8-6, were playing a bad Baltimore team, so many people expected them to win, even though it didn't quite work out that way. And the Vikings owned a better conference record than the Falcons did, much like the other teams. So in the case of a three-way tie, Minnesota would be ahead of Atlanta. In other words, across the next 15 minutes of overtime, if you're Atlanta, it is extremely obvious. You have to win. If you don't win this game, you're eliminated. Let's see how the overtime period starts.
Falcons from the goal line, he deals Shepard. And Shepard lost the football.
Oh my God, this is going to happen. The Falcons are going to do it. The Falcons are actually going to do it. They're going to survive another day. They're going to keep their playoff hopes alive and make the final week of the season insanely interesting. They're going to...
Fell team. Peterson's kick is blocked. The kick was blocked and over.
You're kidding me. Obviously, I don't hate the decision. You've got it lined up for a 27-yard field goal, and you're doing it on third down just in case something goes haywire. That's a jib shot. I get the call. I 100% get it. But, man, that stinks. That just stinks. And sure enough, the Buccaneers capitalize on the block and drive down the field themselves before they line up for a 27-yard field goal of their own. Well, the Falcons just choke this one away. Their season is officially over.
Low snap. Ryan's kick is no good. Wide to the left.
Oh my God, this game is drunk. This is legitimately insane. Both teams missed from 27 yards out in the overtime period. Brand new bowl game. We got life again, people. And after both teams pumped the ball away on their second true possession, since Tampa technically started with the ball but fumbled it away on the kickoff, Atlanta is getting it back with 2 minutes left. You know the drill. You need to win the game. Washington won. Dallas won. Based on head-to-head, if it came down to it, you can't possibly catch up to Tampa since you lost the first meeting against them. You know what's on the line here. 4 down territory to win it. First down, and Michael Vick's pass for the tight end, Algie Crumpler, falls incomplete. Second down, and Vick uses his legs, which he was so good at during his time in Atlanta, to pick up 8 yards. Third down, and this is odd, but they're taking a deep shot down the field for Michael Jenkins. Not sure I agree with that. You only need 2 yards, but unsurprisingly, the pass falls incomplete. Now, you've got 4th down. If you're this man right here, head coach Jim Elmora, this is your season. You cannot play for a tie. There's a minute left, and you only have 2 timeouts. And Tampa obviously is fine with a tie and is content with holding the ball for the final minute. So this is going to be the last offensive play of the game for you guys if you don't get this. The season is on the line here. Let's see what the Falcons have drawn up here. Let's see what the Falcons have ready to go on this all-important 4th down play. I'm sorry, what?
A few moments later.
The kick by Bryant is good.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this could possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Atlanta Falcons head coach Jim Elmora. Mora's dad had a famous rant about the playoffs, and how he wasn't thinking about playoffs. And I guess it's like father like son, because holy cow, Mora was definitely not thinking about the playoffs with this punt. Mora's tenure in Atlanta was incredibly tumultuous, as while he did have a 2004 season where he guided the Falcons to the NFC Championship, he flamed out in rather spectacular fashion after this, thanks to his tirades and altercations with the press, comments that he made about having other interests regarding other coaching vacancies, and just horrible in-game management skills like the ones exhibited here. If this wasn't week 2, not a dumb decision. I wouldn't agree with the 3rd down play call, but in terms of punting the ball away to get a tie and get half a win, no issue. But in week 16, when you literally need a win in order to keep your season alive, absolutely positively not. So with that being said, let's take a look at why punting the ball with 1 minute left on 4th and 2 in a game that you have to win is a bad idea. I mean, do I even need to say anything else? A tie is basically the same as a loss at this point. A tie doesn't officially eliminate you from the playoffs, but you need about 7 meteor strikes to get in. a win is the only way to keep your season alive. Unless you win your next game, Dallas loses their next game, Washington loses their next game, and Minnesota loses their next two, you can't get in with a tie. So which gives you a better chance at winning the game? Punting the ball, trying to force a 3-and-out when you only have 2 timeouts, and then somehow driving 60 yards down the field after the stop to get into field goal range, and doing this all in the span of less than a minute against a team that is more than fine with a tie if they don't have the best field position, or getting 2 yards and trying to move the chains that way. It's not a matter of playing for the tie and debating the merits of just knowing when to fold them, because the difference between a tie and a win isn't bad compared to the difference between a tie and a loss. This is one of those situations where a tie is the same as a loss. You cannot tie. Get that through your head. You cannot tie this game. Instead of just repeating myself here over and over, because I think we all have eyes, and I think we can all see that this was the wrong move considering the circumstances, and one of the dumbest punts of all time, Moore was asked after the game about why he punted the ball in that situation, and he gave an absolutely insane answer. Moore said on the situation, "We were analyzing that. We had Director of Communications Reggie Roberts talking about it. General Manager Rich McKay was investigating it, and we couldn't come up with a solid answer. And I'm not really one to play for ties." That statement is hogwash. Complete hogwash. Number one, you couldn't come up with a solid answer about whether or not a tie was okay? Here's the breakdown. You're out of the playoff picture. You don't have enough wins. All you had to do was open up a freaking newspaper and realize that as things stood, you were out of the playoff picture. You had to win this game. And number two, you're not one to play for ties? Then why the heck did you punt the ball with a minute left and 2 timeouts on 4th and short? How do you think you're going to win the game if you do that? Is a magical fairy just going to give you the ball again out of nowhere? That makes no sense. You can't say that you're not one to play for ties, and then you punt the ball here. That's like a manager in baseball saying that I'm not one to just give free outs to the opposition when he calls for a bunt with a runner on first. That's like a teacher saying that I'm not one to give homework when he gives an entire assignment that it's due over winter break. You get the contradiction there, right? You do see the contradiction. And I wish we knew more about that decision. But when Mora was pressed on that issue after that unsatisfactory answer as to why he punted on 4th and 2, because the reporters could see right through him and had no idea what he was saying, Mora left the podium, ending his press conference abruptly and storming out while saying a bunch of words that you would definitely not find in Christmas carols. I can't exactly repeat the words, but it wasn't so much of a silent night that Christmas Eve when he left. I can tell you that much. So the only justification that Mora gave as to why he punted the ball was because he didn't like playing for a tie, which seems to be the thing that you do in that spot if you are playing for a tie. Because that makes sense. That makes complete sense. The only, and I truly mean it, the only explanation as to how a decision like this makes any sense is if Jim Elmora didn't know the scenarios. I mean, it'd be downright stupid to not know the fact that tying is bad for you when you're out of the playoff picture as things stand with 2 games to play, and all you had to do during one commercial break, literally one commercial break, was look up at the scoreboard to see Dallas or Washington and see that they won their game. But the only way that this would make any sense is if Jim Elmora, for some crazy reason, did not know what the heck was going on and did not know his team's own playoff scenario.
Jim Mora right here takes his headset off. I've never seen a coach take a cell phone call on the sideline right there during a game. That's Ted Cruz, the PR assistant behind him, that gave him the call. Animated call at that. Believe me, that's not his wife on the other end of the cell phone wondering about his Christmas gift. What's left to be done?
You wonder if Mora is asking somebody about the playoff scenario should this game finish in a tie.
You're kidding me. You're actually kidding me. That's right. Mora decided to punt the ball in this one, even despite taking a phone call in the middle of the game to find out about his team's playoff chances and whether a tie would help them. This, by the way, as you might have been able to tell, is illegal. It's highly illegal. Coaches cannot make cell phone calls on the sideline, and there are some pretty obvious reasons as to why that's the case. There's a reason you don't see Andy Reid whipping out his iPhone and calling someone in the middle of a playoff game. You're not allowed to do that. Considering that there was clear-cut evidence that this was a cell phone and that he made a call, and not even the Shaggy defense was going to get out of that one, Mora was unsurprisingly fined $25,000 by the NFL for impermissible communications. If I had a nickel for every time an NFC South team was involved in a controversy in the mid-2000s over the unauthorized use of a cell phone in the middle of the game, I have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. And somehow, that makes the situation even worse. The fact that Mora had no idea about his team's playoff scenario, so he decided to cheat in order to find out, and he still made the wrong decision, is absolutely pathetic and laughably bad. It is hysterical. It's like if I'm playing a game of Madden against my buddy. He goes to the bathroom, so I change all his sliders and mess with his depth chart while he's gone, and I still lose. It's like if I'm going into a test, and I look at the answers of the person sitting across from me, and I still fail. It's actually kind of amazing that he managed to get this wrong, even despite knowing the answer to his question after cheating to find it out. We've seen dumb decisions on this channel before. We've seen many of them. But we have never, in the roughly 150 episodes of this series thus far, seen a dumb decision that involved the team getting it wrong after literally cheating. And after the game between these two teams behind me right here, Jim Mora would never even come remotely close to sniffing the playoffs again as a head coach in the NFL. The Falcons missed the playoffs in 2005, as we all know, and they ended the season with an 8-8 record. And then in 2006, they followed it up with a losing season, finishing 7-9, meaning that Mora's record got worse in each of his 3 seasons as the Falcons head coach. Mora was relieved of his duties after the 2006 season, and would eventually coach in the NFL again in 2009 when he was hired by the Seattle Seahawks. That season was a disaster. He might have been the worst head coach in Seahawks history, as the Seahawks ended that year with a 5-11 record before he was relieved of his duties after 1 season and was replaced by Pete Carroll, a much more successful coach. Now, I would use the if I had 2 nickels joke to bring up the fact that twice Jim Mora was replaced by a college head coach, but I don't really want to waste my oxygen on Bobby Petrino. So what do we learn from all of this? Certain things can be done one week, but not the next. Punting the ball in this spot in a playoff game or an early regular season game? Fine, I guess. Punting the ball in this spot when we need to win, you will not touch the ball again under any normal circumstances? Not fine. Not good at all. If you need to win the game, you cannot play for the tie. That should be blatantly obvious, but if you need a win, then you need to score more points than your opponent. And if you have the same number of points as your opponent, guess what? You're not winning. By no metric are you winning. If you don't feel confident in your team to get 2 yards when you must get 2 yards to keep your season alive, then you are a bad coach. And if you're going to make a dumb decision that was obvious to everyone else but you, at the very least, don't cheat while trying to do it. The only thing worse than a dumb decision to knock you out of the playoffs is a dumb decision to knock you out of the playoffs where you also get fined $25,000 on top of it. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.